Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to sportsnetusa.net. My name is Jason Perez, and today we got a very special show for you because today's show is coming to you from Scotland. And usually everything with sportsnetusa.net is about live streaming sports, but obviously due to the pandemic and everything of that nature, there hasn't been that many sports to stream. So instead, what we've been doing is we've been focusing on interviewing different coaches around the states and so forth. However, today we're going to be interviewing a coach that is managing a football team. And by that, I mean what you back home would call soccer, but from here on out, we're going to just call football. So he manages a football team for the University of Stirling. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Geddes. How are you doing today, Chris?
Good, thanks. Like I said to you before we came on, I'm a big American football fan. I've not missed a Patriots game in 8-9 years, so that's why I'm a bit tired today watching us get stuffed off the Rams, but all good.
Is Cam Newton still your quarterback, or are you ready to move on?
I was moved on at the start, mate. He's not what we need at the moment, but give the young guy a chance. Do you know what I mean? Give the young guy a chance, see what he does.
Fair enough. Well, Chris, as I said earlier at the top, you're the manager of the University of Stirling Football Club. But before we go a little bit more into that and what all that entails, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story through football?
Okay. I don't like to say I was one of these players that could have made it. I probably had every opportunity to make it. My kind of start in football was at the local professional club, Stirling Albion. Back then, when I was younger, the youth teams played all the top teams. So I played Rangers, we played Celtic, we played all the top clubs. Nowadays, if you were at Stirling Albion, you wouldn't play those youth teams. You would play teams at your level. So I had offers when I was 15, 16 to go to Hibs, Rangers, things like that. I couldn't go to Rangers because my dad couldn't get me to Glasgow on time for training because the time that team trained. I had trials. I represented Scotland at 15s, 16s and 17s. I had trials with some English clubs, Leeds, Derby, Ipswich, Sunderland, Middlesbrough. And some of those places I went numerous times, 3, 4, 5 times. And obviously that's what I mean by some people would sit here and say they never got a lucky break. Some people would say they got screwed by a coach. I just didn't do enough probably at the time. And then I got released from Stirling Albion professional side around 19, 20 after 2.5 years full time as a young apprentice. And I'll be honest, I dropped down to a level which I never thought I would drop down to. But in looking back, it was great because I was with a group of guys that I was a young lad in a real man's dressing room, and they took good care of me, and I've made friends with them ever since. And then thankfully through playing for that side, we had my 2 coaches were ex-professionals. They managed to get me a trial with a professional side, and I'd done enough to go back professional for a few years, done okay. And then I dropped back down because I was one of these players in my career that I always wanted to play. Obviously, the level I was playing, it was nothing about the money because we weren't getting enough money. It was part-time football. The money didn't do anything. So I just wanted to play. I'm always one of these players that I never like sitting on the bench. I always wanted to play football. So if that meant dropping down levels from professional to a level below, I done that and I did. And then it's quite just a random thing. Once I was at college, and I was on the computer and I was talking to my friend who played with Stirling Uni. He was a Stirling Uni student, and he says, why don't I speak to the coaches to get you here? Because one thing that might be different from obviously the States is because we play in a Saturday league, which I'm sure you'll ask me about later, we can play non-students. So I've actually never been a student at Stirling. I just couldn't play university football. I could always play on a Saturday. So my friend was like, do you fancy it? And I was like, well, tell me more. And then obviously, thankfully, after some negotiations with the team I was with, I signed with Stirling Uni. And that was, 9 years ago. And then I was a player I technically still am player manager. I'm 35. I'm not in the right shape to be a player now, but I'm like an emergency case. And my first 6 years, I was at Stirling for 1 year and I'd done really well. And then we got a new coach in, an ex-professional, Eddie May, played for Falkirk and played loads of Premier League games in Scotland. He wasn't a fan of my fitness. So I didn't play as much my second year. And then around November, December of my second year, I always wanted to play football abroad. It's funny we're chatting about the States because I emailed so many clubs in the States to find out. I got an offer from an indoor arena team, which would have been interesting, and I got an offer from the Texas Dutch Lions and the PDL for a 3-month season. But I chose to go to Australia instead. So I played a season in Australia from February to July, and then straight away after that, some people would have went tour in Australia. Some, when I look back, sometimes I wish I did, but I came straight back for football for the start of the Scottish season, and I came straight back to the uni. And then, like I say, I've not looked back. Had some good years as well. I'm the top scorer in the first team. Overall, I think I've got about 170 goals in the years. And then thankfully, I'm in my 4th year. So 3.5 seasons ago, I got offered the job as head coach of the men's first team. Because obviously at Stirling we have, I'm not sure what it's like in the States, but in Scotland, at Stirling, we've got 6 sides. So when we call ourselves a football club, I'm in charge of the men's first team and under 20s, but we also have a men's second team, a third team, a fourth team, and a fifth team. So my role, like I say, is the first team, but I also coach our men's under 20 side. So I take 2 sides a week. So I'm coaching 7-8 sessions a week, and before COVID, obviously 3 games a week with the uni football and stuff. So yeah, that's like a quick bit about my background, and obviously I've been very fortunate what the uni have gave me. It's a great place to work. And I don't take too much credit, but a lot of people will say, well, Chris, you've gave the uni a lot in terms of the goals you scored and stuff like that. But we've had some great memories at the uni Scottish Cup. We've got the Scottish Cup this weekend. Do you know what I mean? We're only, if you're going dreaming, we're only 3 games away from a Premier League team, the way COVID's restructured the Scottish Cup this year. So yeah, we've had some great memories, and we won our bucks. We won the British North League last year. So now my journey's been up and down, but no regrets. I'm not one of these guys, like I say, that sit back and go, oh, I could have been this, I could have been that. Ultimately, it was probably down to me just not working hard enough. And that's why I think I'm the perfect spot at uni. Because if I see talented players who I think are wasting their time, then obviously I can relate and I can give them my history, and then they can hopefully feed off that. So yeah, that's I'm not a fan of talking about myself anymore. When you're young, you always want to talk about yourself, mate. But when I've grown up and matured, I don't really like it now. So yeah, that's enough on me.
Well, fair enough, and thank you so much for elaborating on that. And I love what you said there towards the end about because obviously as a manager in especially for a team that will predominantly have younger players because of its association with the university, you're not only just managing a football team, you're also having to be a leader to these boys and almost trying to raise them, trying to be a role model and things like that. So that's really just humbling and nice to hear you say that. But now that we know a little bit more about yourself, let's go a little bit more of a deep dive into the University of Stirling Football Club. And so one of the things that you brought up was the idea of a Saturday league, which, like as you also said, is something that is different than the state's model for like universities. So you're a part of 2 different leagues. You're a part of the Bucks League, which is of the British University and Colleges Sports League. And then you're also part of the Lowland League. So break those down for me.
So that's, like you said, Jason, that's a big difference between us and the States. I know a lot of the States during the summer, they call it the boys from college go and play with the PDL and stuff like that, and they get another 15 games during that. So one of the big recruitment tools Stirling has, like I always talk about people, and I'm not having a go at the States, because if you go to the States, you can get a great lifestyle. I watched the NCAA, I watched the ACC tournament on ESPN just recently because I wanted to watch US college football and see if I could see differences. So I watched Clemson, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, things like that. And the facilities and stuff were excellent, don't get me wrong. The big difference, obviously, we have over them is the level of football we play. So obviously, if you break it down, you've got the Scottish Premier League, you've got the Scottish Championship, then you've got professional, you've got the League One and League Two. So there's your 4 professional leagues. Because of this pandemic and stuff, it's put more our level into the spotlight because we're still getting to play during the pandemic. So we're classed as a professional team now. So we play one level below so we have a league called the Highland League, obviously for the teams up north of Scotland, and then the Lowland League. And what happens at the end of the season is the 2 winners of those leagues play against each other. The winner of that playoff plays against bottom professional League Two for a chance. So to put it in context, if Stirling Uni were to win every game for 4 seasons, we'd be in the Scottish Premier League. Yeah. It's not going to happen because, as you've elaborated, we've got young lads, inexperienced, and due to the fact that a lot of players like the Lowland League now because of the quality of teams and the less travel aspect, but still the possibility of getting promoted. I'll be honest, mate, the clubs at the top of the league are paying some big, big money. And compared to us, we don't pay our players. Obviously, we just put funds into resources for the players. We can't compete. Like, some teams are paying players £400, £500, £600, £700 a week against student teams. Obviously, from our perspective, for a young lad coming up against a player of those quality, it's very, very good for us. So that's the Lowland League. So that's a normal season. So that runs from, it's interesting because I'm speaking to a boy from America just now who might be coming to do a master's here, and he would never be. So he's asking me, when do you start, Chris? When does pre-season start? So for us, a normal season, pre-season will start 1st of July. And the first league game will be the last Saturday in July, first week in August. And the season will run from then all the way to May, to the end of April, start of May. Because of the pandemic this year, for instance, we play the 19th of December. We usually play the 19th of December. We're playing Boxing Day, which my boys have never done because it's only a professional thing. And we're also playing the 1st of January and the 4th of January. So again, that's totally different from the States, where obviously I have players from abroad in England and stuff, so I have to manage their schedule. I can't ask a boy to travel up from England, to travel home, to travel up. So I've got a goalkeeper from Northern Ireland who's going to miss Boxing Day, but he's going to come back on the 30th. I'm lucky that I've got a few English boys that are they're only 2.5, 3 hours away rather than 5, 6, 7 hours away. So they're quite happy to drive up because they have a professional exemption that they're allowed to drive up from England for games if they need be. And then obviously, so that's Saturday. So this year there's 17 teams. So obviously we play each team twice. We're doing pretty well at the moment. We're 6th and we're having a really good season. We're on 19 points so far. We're doing really well, actually. One thing we've not had in a long time is one of our boys is top scorer in the whole league. He's on 10 goals. The rest of the league are on 7. And that's, honestly, people will maybe listen to this and say, oh, Chris, it's only 12 games in and he's got 10 goals. But for us, our top scorer in the league last year and overall had 8 goals in the Lowland League. Because it's such a competitive league, excuse me, one thing that we've lacked over the years since I've stopped playing is we can compete with these best teams because we're fit. We've got good talented players we signed from young professional clubs. Scoring goals against experienced defenders is what's cost us. And this year, thankfully, we're doing it, and we're doing well. So yeah, and then on to we play obviously that on a Saturday, but it also has midweek games because there's not enough Saturdays in the calendar. And to do with the Lowland League as well, sorry mate, we also play in 1, 2, 3, 4 cup competitions through the year as well. So we play in the Scottish Cup, which is the national competition. We play at the end of the season, we play in the League Cup, which is only Lowland League clubs playing that. We also play in, it's called the Football Nation Cup, which is basically like the biggest non-league competition in Scotland. It has us, it has every not professional kind of non-league team apart from the Highland League. If they joined it, it would basically be like underneath the profession, it would be all the best teams. So we're still in that. We're in the 3rd round this year. We've had 2 byes, to be honest. And then we also play in the Football Nation Cup, which is another cup. So we have all those games. And then on top of that, obviously, like you said, we have the Wednesdays. So that's more like what your US colleges do. So basically we play, because we're a top university, we play in the British North University League. So basically we would travel in a normal calendar year, non-COVID, from October, we would play in our league Nottingham, Trent, Northumbria, Durham, Loughborough, and Birmingham was in the league, but they got relegated and Newcastle came in, which is actually good for us because Birmingham's an overnight stay, Newcastle's a down and up in one day. So we would play them home and away. And then we also play in the Queen's Park Shield, which is like the Scottish University Cup, against other Scottish university teams. And we also play in the British Knockout. So there's 6 teams in the north. There's 6 best teams in the south. I think there's 3 from England, and I think there's 4 from England, and there's 2 Welsh universities in there as well. And then at the end of that season, the 10 games in the leagues, you play the opposite. So like 1st and 2nd get a bye. Bottom plays 3rd and so on. Do you know what I mean? Like a seeded system, just like your US college sports. So last year we won the British North. last day decider down at Nottingham Trent, really defensive side. They only had to draw to win the league. They'd only conceded 3 goals in 4 home games, and we won it in the 88th minute to beat them 1-0. It was honestly, that's probably one of my proudest achievements as a coach. I've got the video, I watch it all the time. It was unbelievable from the boys. And then we got to the semi-finals of the British Championships, was a good achievement. We got knocked out from Cardiff Met, who are like us, they play in the Welsh Premier League, so they're like us, they have a top Saturday side as well, so that was a tight game. So yeah, usual years, we averaged 54 games. We were on course for 53 last year. The year before that, we were on course for 55. Well, we played 55 the year before. This year, we're on course, I would say, for probably about 40, because you take out those uni games. But for what it's worth, they are planning a Bucks kind of campaign in start of February, where it will be, if it goes ahead because of COVID, if it's better, or just things are a bit better, we'll play each team home and away once. There'll be no relegation and promotion, and we're probably still playing the British Cup. So we might get another 5, 6, 7 games on top of that. But it's wait and see. The problem that comes with that is, because it's all scheduled late, the Lowland League and university football don't overlap. So if we have a Lowland, so we play in the Lowland League this Wednesday, so this Wednesday coming. If we had a university game that day as well, if the university team wouldn't move the game, we would have 2 games in one day. But thankfully, the universities are quite good. And if you have a problem, you go to your boss. And the boss, our head of sport, goes to their head of sport. So we go bypass the managers, because managers some managers in England don't want to help us. So I'll go to my boss, who then goes and they do favours with each other. So that's kind of how football works for us. Like I said, we can have non-students. So you could sign for me and play tomorrow in our game, but you couldn't play on a Wednesday. And going back, I forgot to say, my coaching journey started with the Uni 5th team. So my coaching journey started with the Uni 5th team. Then I went to the 4th team. I couldn't do the 3rd team because they have a Saturday team. So I just stalled at the 4s. And then obviously I moved up to the 20s in the 1st team. So yeah, it's on a normal year, we're busy. We don't have, I know a lot of US colleges have big rosters, as they'll call them. Let's use an American word. We don't. We usually carry about 25 players for all those games. And on top of that, with the under 20 side, we have some young scholars, because obviously our players are scholars. We have some young scholars who aren't ready to play in the 1st team yet, but I want to keep an eye on them all year. I want to coach them hands-on, because we might think they're ready for the year after or the year after. So they play under 20 football. So usually we would maybe have 23 1st team players to pick from. This year we've got 22. And we've got a couple of injuries, so we're at 20 players to pick from all those games. And like I say, that's a recruitment tool for us, because the level of football we play is just, young lads want to play as many games as they can. So yeah, a lot of info there. Hopefully people listening understand that and see the quality that we play at. We actually got invited to, it was rubbish. We got invited because we won our league, the Uni League. We got invited to the European Uni Championships in Slovakia last year. It was meant to be in start of June or July. But obviously with the pandemic, that all got canned. So that was disappointing for our boys, because we actually went to it 5 years ago in Croatia. I was lucky enough, because I'm at uni, they play with them. They invited me and I just trained, because obviously I couldn't play. I got a free holiday out of it to Croatia for 10 days as an experienced player. But yeah, so that was disappointing. But that's kind of how the games work. Lots of games, lots of development time, not any players sitting on the bench. For instance, like it's a funny picture I sent to my goalkeeping coach. I was watching Notre Dame versus North Carolina, and North Carolina had 4 sub goalies sitting on, or 3 sub goalies sitting on the bench. And I sent it to my goalkeeping coach, and I said, if any of our goalies ever moan about never getting minutes again, because we only have 2, I says, he's got a problem. And I sent him the picture, and he just laughed. And obviously that's kind of the differences between America and here, where they've got bigger squads and stuff like that. But yeah, mate, that's kind of it. Don't know if you've got any questions on that.
No,
but,
yeah, that's absolutely perfect. And I guess one of the things that there's a lot of things that I kind of want to follow up with, but one of the things that I kind of want to follow up with there is there a hierarchy, like when you are having to plan your rosters, are you always giving more preference to the Lowland games? Are the Bucks games something that you're like, well, we could do sort of our second team or something like that here?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, so we can't. So our second team are the same. It's a different conversation, but they play in the league below us as well. So if I'm recruiting a player, I can talk about our men's second team as well, because it's at our men's second team, just quickly, is at the similar level to any other Scottish unit. So our second team is like a first team at any other university. It's just because we have a scholar team. So our second team are in the same league as Heriot first team. Until last year, our university team were in Scottish Division 1A of Bucks, which was with Glasgow ones, Edinburgh ones. So they were competing against first teams when they're a second team. So on a Wednesday, the way I play, I take every game as it comes. I don't prioritize any, because when you're in a uni environment, I've came from, instance, when I first came to Stirling, I've came from a Saturday environment, let's call it that, where it's 3 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday. Uni football is very prestigious for the people, let's call them the bigwigs up in the universities. So, for instance, us beating Loughborough and beating Nottingham and winning that Bucks North might mean more to some of the suits, as we'll say, than maybe the players. So I take it every game as it comes. Yeah, there might be a Wednesday game where we give some games to maybe boys that haven't played as many minutes, but we trust them all because they're in our squad. They aren't at the, again, I'm only going on some things I've seen. This isn't every US college. But there's boys, and I've spoke to a friend who works in America, and he's explained little bits of his way, his college works. We don't have boys at the bottom end of the roster, as they call it, who don't play. Every one of our players play games, so they're all called upon. The biggest issue is we're having this year is we don't have Wednesday football, so it's more like, sounds silly, it's more like real life football, where a player might play 10 minutes tomorrow, then he might not play for another 4 weeks because he's on the bench. And usually we can, if a boy plays half an hour on a Saturday, half an hour on a Wednesday, 20 minutes on a Saturday, 45 on a Wednesday, he's continually playing minutes, whereas we don't have that luxury this year because of COVID. So that's the biggest challenge this year. But yeah, I don't prioritise. Me and my staff, well, I say my staff, my assistant coach that isn't full-time, that I'm full-time, he's got a job, so he only comes in for games on a Saturday and then training during the week when he can at night. But yeah, I don't prioritise because we can't do that. Every game's a big game, and we can't afford to do that. I'm not going to flog donkeys, do you know what I mean? I'm not going to flog players every week and make them play like that. And it seems to be working. Do you know what I mean? It works, yeah. So why change it?
Exactly. And as you said, also currently in the Lowland League, you guys are 6th place, which is great. And also, you brought up as well earlier, Jamie, who is currently your top goal scorer, and like how big of a deal it is. And just to make it more prevalent to some of the listeners, I believe he's currently coming in with 10 goals so far this season, where the next person up would be 7 goals. But if you look at the rest of your team, the next person in highest goal scorer is about 3 goals for your team. So like that is such a remarkable just nose for goal that he has. So
yeah, listen, and the thing is, he came through the 20s. So Jamie came from a professional youth club team, Forfar, wanted to be a scholar in his first year. I didn't think he was ready to be a scholar. We worked with him. He played in the 20s. He scored about 16, 17 goals. And then in his second year last year, he was top scorer. I think he scored 20. The under 20s won their league last year. He scored about 25 goals. And then obviously he's came into the first team this year. And I'll share with you, he's very lucky that he's in the team to start with, because the normal striker, Kieron Hall, an experienced boy we've got from England, Kieron was our starter in pre-season, and he has been for the last few years. But Kieron got COVID and he had to obviously isolate for 2 weeks. And Jamie came in and he took his place. There's no other way around it. And Jamie hasn't looked back. He's got 10 league goals in 12 games, but only 11 starts, because one of our defeats we changed shape and I gave him a rest, and we lost, but it wasn't because he wasn't playing. So yeah, he's got 10 goals and 11 starts, and he's doing very well. He's doing very well, and the boy's got a chance, and he just needs to keep it going. And I'm an ex-striker, so I'd like to think things I've taught him in training and stuff, because one thing we find when young lads come up, the physical aspect of the game in terms of leading the line. And when you lead the line, you need to be able to hold the ball up. You need to be strong. Yeah, you might be fast. Yeah, you might be able to score goals. But if you can't hold that ball up, if you're playing one up front, then you're going to struggle to bring your team into play. And so much of our game is big on bringing others up the park and into play. So yeah, he's doing excellent. And like you said to the people who listen, it's a great achievement. It's only an achievement so far. Do you know what I mean? What I keep saying to him is the easy things to get there, the hard things to stay there. Do you know what I mean? And thankfully he keeps scoring. And as long as he keeps scoring, it brings confidence. And yeah, it's great that he's doing that. I'm really happy.
Well, that's amazing. And just one more thing before we jump over to the quick fire round here. As you brought up, you're an ex-striker. So do you feel like as a manager, you come at it from more of an attacking point of view? Is that more of your style of coaching? How, like, give me a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, listen, that's a good point, because I do like to attack. So there's certain things that I need to change in my philosophies, because, for instance, as a striker, one silly little thing, at corners against, I was always up the park on the halfway line, standing, watching the boys defend a corner. So it would take a lot for me to then have every player back. So my assistant manager likes to have every player back defending a corner. We actually, it's interesting, we have a player in our squad whose grandpa's Craig Brown, who's the ex-Scotland manager, and up until recently was the last Scotland manager to get us to a tournament. And I sometimes ask Craig, his grandpa comes to some of our games, and I'll get a wee chat with him. And he always said to me, Sir Alex Ferguson said, when you're defending corners, he always had every player back, because don't worry about the counter-attack, because you have to defend the corner first to get the counter-attack. And little bits of information like that coming from the word of the mouth of some of the top managers we've had in Scotland is great. And I'm lucky to be able to call upon some bits like that. So I've had to change, like this season, for instance. I'll be honest, this season we're not playing defensive, but we've got a bit more of a defensive shape where we're letting teams have the ball at the back, because for a few years, and we can do it, we've been a full-on press team because we're energetic, we've bags of energy, we're fit, we've got good shape. So we've done a lot of, for a good few years, we've pressed the life out of teams. But this season, we've just kind of morphed into a kind of, we didn't do much in training with it. The boys just kind of took up when we're sitting off more, we're setting traps, and we're pressing teams at the right moment. And for me, as an attacking coach that just wants to go after teams, we've had to rein it in. And yeah, it opens my eyes, because like I said to my boys, if this is the way we're playing and it's working, then this is what we'll do. You always want to be more attacking. Every coach wants to be more attacking. So people slaughter Jose Mourinho because they think he's defensive. He's not defensive. He's just got a tactical mind where he wants to sit in and play a certain way. Because you look through, for instance, his side, he's got bags of attacking talent. England's best goal scorer. Do you know what I mean? Korea's best player. Lucas, they've got all these players. And we're similar. We want to attack, but we also need to recognise and play to our strengths. And we've found a good identity this year, and it's working well for us. So yeah, I have to rein some of my attacking natural instinct in at times, but you just need to do it as a manager. You can't. I'm not a player. I'm not a player anymore. Do you know what I mean? I don't think like a player much anymore, which helps. Always learning. Do you know what I mean? I'm always learning, and you have to as a coach. I'm not a great coach. I would say I'm okay, and you've got to learn, because if you don't, you'll just stagnate. And obviously I'm fortunate I'm in a position where I'm coaching some really talented youngsters, and if I don't improve, then there's something wrong with me.
Perfect. And one last thing I want to bring up actually before we jump forward is one of the things you brought up earlier is just with how the Lowland League is sort of the structure of it now. You have teams, for example, like Kelty Hearts, who have the money to bring in.
Play them next week. We play them next Saturday.
Yeah, so like you have the money to bring in a manager who was once sort of the bad boy sort of Scottish football, and like, but also be able to pay their players like a more hefty salary and things like that. Is it? Because one of the things that you said about your team is your students or the players on your team don't necessarily have to be students for the Saturday League. Is there a problem of, or I guess what do your players eventually age out of your program? Do they eventually is there a problem of your players getting poached by other teams?
Yeah. So usually, good point. So we, over the years since so for instance, when I played, I was 27 when I signed with the uni. So I was a non-student. We had 2 or 3 non-students and they were all experienced players. And over the years, like last year, our number 1 goalie at the start of the season was an ex-Stirling Uni student. The big problem we have with non-students is the training times we train. So we train Monday mornings, 8 till 10 in the morning. We train Tuesday afternoons, 2:30 till 4. Then obviously we would play on a Wednesday. We train Thursday nights, 7:30 till 9:30. So if you're a normal 9 to 5 worker, you can't play for us because you could only make 1 training. So I was always lucky that, for instance, is also when I was a coach at the uni, I was a lifeguard as well at the uni. So the uni took care of me. So everything I done was around the uni. So I was part-time lifeguard. They would say, Chris, can you work this time, that time? I would say, well, I can work then, but I can't work then because I've got training. Whereas other people can't do that because they obviously have 9 to 5 jobs. And usually players see out their 4 years well as if they're a scholar. So when people talk to me about scholars, we're a scholarship program. It's just different from the States because in the States, a lot of clubs need to offer. So they would offer you fees, housing, stuff like that. I don't need to offer that to players because of the level of football and the program we have. In America, you're fighting for every player. So that extra $1 you're going to give them might make the difference between you recruiting them or not. I know that's not the case at every university, but I've got, for instance, he's injured this season and he's not part of our squad, but he was for 2 seasons there. We had a boy who was recruited from Rangers to Baker, one of the top sides. We've actually got a boy in our team now who actually is going to America in January because he just wants to give it a shot. But obviously we don't know with the pandemic if he's actually currently playing with us as a non-student just now because he pulled out of Stirling in September, and so he's doing online classes. So for instance, on a Thursday night he goes away training at 8:30 so he can go and do his classes for his American college. And players do leave. In the last 2 years at Stirling, we've had 4 players go professional. One player just outgrew us because he was that good and he left after 2 years with us because he was just that good. He's now playing for Partick Thistle in League One. He did sign with them when they were in the Championship last year, but I'm sure you know they got relegated, blah, blah. And we have 3. It was interesting at the weekend, we had 3 of our ex-scholars graduates playing against each other on Saturday in League Two. So, like I've said to people, my job isn't to make players professional and stuff. I don't set out. So I get a lot of young lads saying, can you make me or the parents say, Chris, can you get him professional? My job isn't to do that. My job is just to put the resources in play, give you coaching time and give you the development time. And if you improve enough, then you never know what could happen. And we've got 2 or 3 players in our squad this year who are probably, hopefully, will get our 4th years who we're looking to try and get some trials at senior clubs with because we think they're good enough. One definitely will go senior because he's already had offers. So the excuse me. Like I was saying, they don't outgrow us age-wise normally. It's usually they finish their 4 years unless they leave because we had a Canadian boy doing a Masters last year, Aaron. He couldn't do the workload, so we kind of dropped him down to our second team where the workload wasn't as much. And then obviously this year he's not came back because he can do all his studies online. They don't really age out. They usually finish their 4 years. And like I say, only one player in the last few years has outgrew us, and he left because he was good enough to leave now. And he was getting good money offers, and I couldn't compete with that. So yeah, give us a sec. I'll go. There you go. So yeah, but yeah, they don't. That's it. 4 years, and then they usually leave. Some players might do a Masters and stay for a 5th year, but that's not very common here.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I know you gotta leave. I know you got a new baby and all that stuff. I'm gonna give you one.
Yeah, no, mate, carry on. Fire the questions. Fire away with the stuff, mate. It's fine.
Perfect. We're gonna just do a fun little thing to end. We're just gonna do a quick fire round of just absolute nonsense. So, Chris, are you ready?
Yeah.
Perfect. Chris, who's your favorite team?
Well, I'm not meant to share. Stirling Uni.
Who's your favorite footballer?
My favorite footballer of all time is Ronaldo, the Brazilian version.
Perfect. You're walking up to the pub. What order do you drink, or what drink do you order?
I don't really go to the pub anymore. Maybe get a cider or a beer.
Okay, perfect. Who's your least favorite team?
Oh, no comment.
What player or coach would you want to have a square go with?
For heaven's sake. Oh, I don't know. Someone who's smaller than me.
What kind of roll do you order from the shop?
What kind of roll?
Yeah,
As
like
in
do you have like just like square
yes,
sausage or
square sausage and egg.
perfect? What is your pump up song when you're getting ready for a game?
When I played, I used to listen to more upbeat dance music to get me going.
Perfect. So obviously Scotland just got into the Euros, a miracle in itself. How far do you think they're going to get through?
Oh, listen, just to get there was a really good achievement. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully we can do well. Do you know what I mean? And we maybe get a win. But you never know. These tournaments are getting bigger all the time. So, for instance, in a few competitions, third place might get you through. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, playing England is always a big one. So now I don't know. Hopefully we can just we can maybe get a win. That's because if you get a win in these group things, it sets you up for potentially going through because you can go through with 4 points. So we'll see. But it's something to look forward to. Obviously, being a tough year.
Perfect. 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Spice Girls or Little Mix?
Spice Girls.
And last but not least, for any students that might be listening to this from the States, give me in one line why they should possibly be interested in coming to play for Stirling University.
If you're keen about football and you want to improve, then the level of football we play at and the resources we have say it all. Like, just quickly, we just opened a brand new £20 million facility. Videos, we opened for a week, then we shut down for 3 because of level 4, but we're opening again tomorrow. And if you look at the videos of our performance gym that the players get, because they get strength and conditioning, and if you look at the gym, everything, then why wouldn't you? Because the level of football we play at says it all. Do you know what I mean? For any young player.
Perfect. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us on sportsnetusa.net. And best of luck for the rest of your season and for all your upcoming games. And stay safe out there. Okay, brother?
No problem. Thanks very much for having me.
All right.